major theme of the Renaissance includes the term humanism. This began in Italy, and it is considered the science of the arts. It's a time of rediscovery and a focus on the centrality of man. Many humanists believe in compassionate interactions between two people, and that humans are valued as more important as the divine or God. There's a high emphasis on values, and this is shown through different forms of art, including logic, rhetoric, philosophy, and poetry. Many of the famous writers of the Renaissance were also humanists, and many of them lived in close proximity to each other. For example, Petrarch, Michelangelo, and Vasari are all from Arezzo. Machiavelli and Leonardo da Vinci were from the Republic of Florence, and Boccaccio also lived in Sartaldo, which is close to Tuscany, in Siena. Christopher Columbus lived on kind of the hook of Italy and lived in Genoa. The idea of their birthplaces is very significant because we can see really that humanism was born in Italy. Francesco Petrarch, born in Arezzo, was considered the father of humanism. He was the first to develop the concept of the Dark Ages and believed in the change of perspective from the physical outside of human to the deeper meanings inside. He also valued human body movement and encompasses the physical, emotional, and mental components of humans. As an experienced man and early Resurgence writer, he shows personal growth in not only his poetry but his letters. In his letter to posterity, he discussed human morals and plight that humans experience in their daily life, such as love, lust, and protection. He quotes, "I am now amazed to think how positively he assessed me and how acceptable he found me, and I think that to you, reader, will be just as amazed to learn what happened. He recognized my useful trust in him, and perhaps also the honor I was asking from him could not only be down to his own glory." This is expressing Petrarch's own personal growth and a centrality of man rather than focusing all his efforts on God or looking to God to thank him for his own accomplishments. He thanks himself, and he recognizes that other people have seen his personal growth.
Another humanist, Niccolo Machiavelli, took a different approach to Renaissance humanism than others. He was often viewed to be not a typical humanist because he combined classical ideas with new ones, which had not been done before. In Machiavelli's The Prince, he focuses on the idea that instead of a typical hereditary prince, the possibility of a new prince. He says that a new prince has a much more difficult task when trying to rule. In Chapter 17, Machiavelli addresses the fact of what a prince should be in order to achieve power effectively and rule his people. It states, "This leads us to a question that is in a dispute. Is it better to be loved than feared, or vice versa? My reply is one ought to be both loved and feared, but since it is difficult to accomplish both at the same time, I maintain that it is much safer to be feared than loved, if you have to do one without the other." Machiavelli stresses a shift from the religious ideal to practical and worldly advice to new princes. In this quote, he emphasizes the humanistic view of man's nature in the focus of man, rather than the well-known previous view of the centrality of the divine or God. Instead of believing that God was responsible for everything, Machiavelli explains that man has a huge hand in controlling his own destiny, despite all of his flaws and virtues.
Another Renaissance writer was Boccaccio. He was a modern humanist who based off his works of Petrarch. As an early humanist, his characters embodied the philosophy that productivity and success of the humans is significant. And he also had a carpe diem type attitude, so to seize the day and live to the fullest no matter what. In Boccaccio's Decameron, he uses a new shift on an older literary technique called the frame story. By using this model, he sheds new light on religion and exposing the corruption of church. In day one, in the first story, a monk spots a beautiful girl and wants to commit a sin with her. This quotes, "When his eyes came to rest on a strikingly beautiful girl, No sooner did he see her than he was fiercely assailed by carnal desire. And the fact that the monk is engaging in such a sin shows the extreme corruption and kind of like the changing of the times and how the church may not be all that it seems. As the story goes on, the main characters tell more interesting stories, full of sex and morality and corruption of the church. And especially in day 3 of the first and 10th story, they discuss other aspects of human reality. The fact that these stories are inserted into this book and are stated kind of out there for the first time shows a shift in humanism. It shows that humanism may be shown as more important and that sex isn't all that bad.
In Ariosto's Orlando Furioso, instead of chivalric ideas that were no longer acquainted in the 16th century, the poem shows a new Renaissance humanism conception of man where life is celebrated. Orlando Furioso is a continuation of Matteo Maria Boiardo's unfinished romance of Orlando Innamorado. However, Ariosto has an ironic tone that is rarely present in Boiardo's, who treated the ideals of chivalry much more seriously. Ariosto constructed a sequel in which a courtly story was told with drama and humor and applied humanist material drawn from classical authors. In Canto 18, Ariosto focuses on the belief that humanism is derived from the goals of life based on human need and interest, rather than from mythical concepts or religious beliefs, wherein he states, "Seldom can a man escape his destiny." He asserts that humanity must take responsibility for its own destiny, and with a humanist point of view, if there is no evidence for an afterlife, man should act as if this life is the only one that he has.
Christopher Columbus was humanist in the way that he sought to discover new land. Everyone around him said, "Oh, the world is flat, you'll fall right off," but he believed in something else and decided to go with his gut. By traveling and finding America, he discovered new people in that land currently, the natives, and he wrote in a Santangelo letter about them. They are all people of very beautiful appearance, and are not black as in Guinea, but have long flowing hair, and where they live the sun's rays are not too intense. By recognizing that they are humans, and that they are people, although they are different skin color, shows that he is humanist, and he is respectful of other people.
Leonardo da Vinci was known for his diverse knowledge of the fields of the arts and sciences, and epitomized the Renaissance humanist standard. His intellectual ability and originality, perhaps more than that of any other figure during this time, embodied the Renaissance humanist ideal. First, Da Vinci's drawing of the Vitruvian Man is regarded as a cultural icon of the Italian Renaissance. The Vitruvian Man shows great influence of the humanist ideal by showing that man is the measure of all things. He shows, in great detail, the human anatomy and his views of the proper proportions and symmetry using fundamental geometric shapes like the circle and square. Another example of Da Vinci's humanist work is Reasons and Nature's Laws in Notebooks. He declares that wisdom is the daughter of experience, which shows true humanism by explaining the positive aspects of humans and that critical thinking is important to be able to develop into the best person that one can be. But also, Da Vinci shows that in order for one to have experience, you first need to live a life with the sense of pragmatism, which is comparable to Machiavelli's view. Michelangelo, a contender for the title of the archetypal Renaissance man, along with Leonardo da Vinci, was a versatile artist who refined ways to express oneself. An example of Michelangelo's humanistic view at its finest is his statue of David. David is a proud example of the man of the humanists of the Renaissance, and a man who is independent, beautiful, and capable. The statue of David depicts a properly proportioned human, much like Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and through this, Michelangelo shows that the human body is a gift and is something that should not be hidden.
Humanism is very important to the Renaissance because it incited a period of change. As there was less focus on the church and more focus on science, Italian people of both middle and upper class noticed the period of realization. Geography and birthplaces of all the authors gave Italy an advantage over humanism. As the authors were in close connection with each other, they elaborated on each other's ideals and added a pivotal change for education overall.
The Medici family, which controlled Florence throughout much of the Renaissance, played a large part in the patronage of the arts and political development of the city. They created an adaptable environment where art and humanism could grow and flourish. One of the many reasons for the rebirth of knowledge and culture was because of the powerful Medici family.
As Petrarch and other Renaissance intellectuals advocated studying, learning, and own personal experience, more humans felt that they had a voice of their own.